Hi, everybody, and welcome to our last episode of Tennessee Tuesdays. Stay tuned to our social media in June, as we'll have lots of information about June Dairy Month. For our last episode of Tennessee Tuesdays, we're going to talk about our Tennessee state government. We all know that we have lots of different levels of government, starting with our national government or our federal government, which is housed in Washington, D.C., headed up by our president, of course. Our state government, which is what we're going to talk about today, which takes place in Nashville and is headed up by our governor. And of course, we have our county government headed up by our county mayor, or some counties call them county executives. And then if you live in a city, you may even have a city mayor. First, let's talk about the different levels of government. Can anybody remember how many branches there are to our state government? If you guessed 3, then you were correct. We have the legislative branch, the executive, and the judicial. First today, we're going to talk about the legislative branch. There are actually 2 parts to the legislative branch. And if you guessed the House of Representatives and the Senate, then you're correct. The House of Representatives is made up by 99 representatives that represent about 60,000 people in each Tennessee House district. We also have 33 senators that represent around 175,000 people in each senatorial district. Now that we know our legislative branch is made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate, can anybody tell me who our Putnam County State Representative is? We actually have 2 that represent Putnam County. Representative Ryan Williams of Cookeville represents a larger portion of Putnam County. And we also have our Speaker of the House for Tennessee, Cameron Sexton, who represents the eastern portion of Putnam County, and he's from Crossville. Their term of service is actually 2 years, so every 2 years they have to go up for re-election if they want to keep their spot. You'll notice in front of their names or in front of their hometown there's an R. If it was a D, it would stand for Democrat, R stands for Republican, and I could possibly stand for Independent. Does anybody know who our state senator is? And he actually represents not only Putnam County, but several other counties that surround us. And that's Mr. Paul Bailey from Sparta, Tennessee. And a senator's term of office is actually 4 years. So every 4 years, they have to go up for re-election. So now that we know who our representatives are and our senators, what do they actually do for us when they go to Nashville? Well, they make and pass laws, such as lawmaking, programming, and financing, and they actually enact laws as well. So there's lots of different things they could do. For example, if we need more money for education, they could possibly raise taxes or designate certain monies to go towards education. Next, let's go on to the executive branch. And usually when we ask this in class, who is in charge of the executive branch, most of our kids are thinking about the federal government, and they say President Trump, of course, right? So actually for our executive branch on the Tennessee state level would be our governor, Governor Bill Lee, who's in charge of our government. And his term of service is every 4 years. Now that we know who our governor is, we might ask, what does our governor actually do? Well, he has final say on laws passed by the legislative branch. He signs bills into laws. He has the power to veto a bill. And he also appoints the heads of our state departments, such as education, agriculture, transportation, and tourism, just to name a few. The governor appoints a person to manage each of the state departments, and this person is called a commissioner. And we said our third branch of government is the judicial branch. And who do we think heads up the judicial branch in Tennessee? And if you guessed the Tennessee Supreme Court, you're correct. Next, let's answer a few questions about the Tennessee Supreme Court. What are the members of this court called? And if you guessed justices or judges, you would be correct. There are how many members? And if we looked at the picture on the last slide, we saw that there are actually 5 members, including the Chief Justice. How do these judges become a member of the Supreme Court? And this is a very interesting question. We ask this in 4-H clubs sometimes, and nobody seems to really know how that happens, and I think a lot of adults probably don't fully understand how they become members of the Supreme Court in Tennessee. And it's very much like on the federal level. On the state level, the governor will appoint each justice, and they are appointed to serve a term of 8 years, but may continue to serve indefinitely if they are re-elected. So every 8 years, the justices are subject to a simple yes or no vote in our general elections to see if they maintain their position. Does anybody know where this court actually meets? Well, they actually meet in 3 different parts of Tennessee. So they meet in Nashville, they also meet in East Tennessee in Knoxville, and also in West Tennessee they will meet in the city of Jackson. What are their main duties as the Supreme Court? Well, they have several different duties, but the big thing is for them to oversee the Tennessee court system. They also determine if laws passed by the legislature and signed by the governor are constitutional, which means that the laws follow the intent or the will of the Constitution of Tennessee. Sometimes the Tennessee Supreme Court may decide a law is not constitutional, in which case they may strike down or cancel the law. Next, let's take a look at the role of each branch of government. What is the role of the legislative branch? We said it is to enact laws. This means they create laws based on the needs of the citizens or the people that they serve. What about the executive branch? We said they administer laws. This means that they enforce or put into place the laws which are passed by the legislature. And finally, the judicial branch interprets laws, which means that they determine what the law means or if the law does what it is designed to do. And finally today, let's talk about the final piece of the puzzle that makes up our state government, and that is the electorate. The electorate is a term used to describe all the people who are entitled to vote. Here in Tennessee, the electorate is made up of anybody 18 years of age or older who is registered to vote. And why might you think that the electorate may be the most important part of our Tennessee state government? Well, that's because they're the people who decide with their votes who will represent them in both the Senate and the House, as well as who will be our Tennessee governor. And remember that our governor then appoints members of the Tennessee Supreme Court, as well as commissioners who will be in charge of each of our different state departments. Today, we hope you've learned a little bit more about our Tennessee state government, and we hope you've enjoyed our Tennessee Tuesday videos over the last couple of weeks. Remember, stay tuned to our social media in June as we bring you more information about June Dairy Month and the dairy industry here in Tennessee. Thank you guys, and we hope to see you all again soon.